Hello, I am Mayor Watt. This is ohmTown.com. And this is the ohmTown Daily News Show for September 26th, 2022. Episode, I think it's 269. Nice. I've already selected a bunch of articles, and let's just get into it. Today is kind of an interesting night because starting right now, there is, well, it's already going, but in about an hour, 20 minutes or so, there's a NASA DART, which is basically a kinetic energy probe that's being thrown at an asteroid, and it's expected to hit it with enough force. This asteroid is going to get struck by a man-made object hard enough to observe a change in its orbit. Why are we doing this? I guess some people would say, why do we climb mountains? And I guess we're going to see what ends up happening. There's an article later on that talks about this, and we'll go through it really quick when we get there. But we're going to start off with the Uber hack that exposed more than a failed data security policy, procedure, and practice. It says here in this article, the little snippet basically just says, we need strong regulations that force organizations to maintain good security practices. Well, we do and we don't. And it really amounts to the C-suite being responsible for the actions of the organization. Now, one of the problems with cybersecurity is that it's very expensive. And if you take some measures, half steps, heck, somebody could probably use that as a means leverage to litigate because, well, you knew about the threat, but you didn't take adequate steps. Well, unfortunately, there's so many small businesses and large businesses that don't take adequate steps in cybersecurity. And over and above that, the problem is that we've got an entire population of people that are hell-bent on penetrating systems for myriad reasons. It can be political, it could be for money, it could be fortune and fame together, it could be just fame. And it's largely not in public circles where that fame comes from. It's from others that are like-minded, very interested in penetrating systems, which would be fine if it was for the greater good of bettering systems, but it's not always that way. In many ways, the objective of the population that does this is to do bug bounties. It's to find bugs and then be compensated, which again, I suppose it would be fine, but not everybody plays by those same rules. They don't find a bug and then they make money off of it by saying, hey, I found this bug, will you pay me? And the complications here are myriad. Okay, so I can easily be distracted by just talking about that part of it. But suffice it to say that some providers of bug bounties don't act in good faith, and the people who provide the data about a penetration, they don't necessarily act in good faith. Not everybody is the same way on either side of this. But as they say, one bad apple spoils the bunch. You can't just say one bad apple and not the rest of that phrase. The context of that matters. So if somebody is a bad actor and you know that they're a bad actor and you don't do anything about the bad acting, you are part of the bunch that has been spoiled. So, and the same thing applies to every organizational body. If you know of somebody that's violating the integrity of the social contract that we have all agreed to as a society, and we all have, otherwise you're not part of the society and you can go somewhere else, so to speak. you're still part of it, and much to your dismay. If you don't feel like you're part of society, you really are. And you definitely can't get away from it. You can get out to the outskirts of it, but for some strange reason, people come back to society at some point for some need, whatever it might be. The clothing on your back, the wheels on your car, all kinds of stuff that society provides. We're all part of it. Well, violate the contract. There are repercussions for violating that contract. And yeah, we're all part of it. So this hack may have done some good, but this New York Times opinion essay from earlier today, I'd say it was, is by Bruce Schneier, is a security technologist and author of 14 books, including the forthcoming A Hacker's Mind, how the powerful bend society's rules and how to bend them back. Uber was hacked this month. The company said that the attacker was a teenager, possibly linked to the incident, was just arrested in London, most likely obtained the corporate password of an Uber contractor. Using the person's access, the hacker gained access to some of Uber's internal systems, internal Slack messages, a finance tool for invoices, in the dashboard where the company's security researchers reported bugs and vulnerabilities. It's a big deal and an embarrassment to the company. I haven't heard much of an announcement, short of the initial presser of others saying it, not really Uber. Uber said it believes that the attacker is affiliated with a hacking group called Lapsus, with a $sign at the end, kind of like Kesha, without the musical aptitude, I suppose, whose members are mostly teenagers, and which has recently targeted several technology companies. So this article kind of goes into greater detail about what they believe should be done. This is something that they see again and again in companies, and not only in startups. It's even the same thing that former Twitter security chief Peter Zatko, better known as Mudge, is accusing the company of doing, basically hiding things and not necessarily doing the due diligence necessary and patching it. And I've actually interacted with many people like that who some security issue comes to bear, and instead of it being overtly disclosed, it's patched, and quietly following the chain of command, it just dies right there at the person that is either doing the work or is in charge of the disclosure, and they quote unquote deem it not necessary to disclose because it hasn't reached a particular level. But regardless, a breach took place and something might have been compromised, and it isn't necessarily a big deal depending on the scope of it. And sometimes you can agree if there's enough transparency and discussion about it. But here we are with Uber. A lack of incentives is obviously has profound implications for the security of all of our data stored by a seemingly unknowable number of different companies who are all collecting dossiers on our movements and habits. This, by the way, is a person who focuses on security, apparently hints at somewhat wanting personal privacy. Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of several letters from the OPM, Office of Personnel Management, because of their data breaches. And really, for government, it's enumerated to a contractor, and the contractor does what is enumerated in the work order. And if there isn't enough security in place at the time, and it's never evolved, guess what you end up with? Swiss cheese of security. Countless contractors in and out of a system that may be deemed secure but isn't secure, and there's no impetus for any of these consultants to say, hey, look, your system's really botched. I've done all kinds of due diligence oh, you're going to go out and put a bid out for people to throw, you're going to just kind of farm it out, and you're not going to give it to me, the contract to me. So what really is the motivation if in the government sense it gets farmed out? A request for proposals, a request for bids goes out. And largely in many organizations, the same thing happens unless they have a security apparatus in place dedicated to network monitoring and the entire enterprise being monitored for potential vectors for intrusion. The person here says, in all of these cases, the victimized organizations could have very likely protected our data better. But the reality is that the market does not reward healthy security. Well, it doesn't reward healthy security, but it should be required. And I agree with this opinion piece that I think every state should require that companies within it do some level of due diligence and have some apparatus in place to make sure that they're secure with personal information. And I also think that we should have the ability to have a right to be forgotten here in the United States. If I want to end my relationship with Uber, my data should be wiped from their systems entirely clean. And anything past a certain point, when it's archived, it's archived. And if it ever gets pulled back out of the system, for whatever reason, if it isn't actual live data for me to reopen my account, that information should be purged from the live database and remain in an archive. Data retention policies persist for a reason, but we don't have that. Europe has that. The EU has that. And I think that we should have the ability to do it here in the States. Let's move on to the next article. I could continue for a while. The next article, oh, wait, before I do that, what I have not been doing, and I guess I just never learned my lessons, is I don't throw it into the chat. So the next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel, lawsuit filed by FBI agents, lawsuit filed after FBI agents raided 1,400 deposit boxes at a U.S. private vaults branch, claims owners' items have still not been returned. This article kind of drew my attention because I've never heard of anything like this before. 1,400 deposit boxes were opened. Deposit boxes holders whose property was seized by the FBI in March of 2021's raid are suing the Bureau. The agency raided U.S. private vaults and seized the contents of 1,400 safety deposit boxes. A lawyer involved in the class action said the FBI raid was the largest armed robbery in U.S. history. I don't know about that. Oh, I already have that open. I'm now opening each of them before I go off to the actual site. So let me do that. There we go. So Sam Tabaridi is the author of this. And they always have this nice little summary here. Deposit box holders whose property was seized in March 2021's FBI raid are suing the Bureau. 1,400 safe deposit boxes were seized. And the lawyer that's involved in the class action says that it's the largest armed robbery in U.S. history. I would probably imagine that, yeah, it's true. A lawsuit that was filed after FBI agents raided a vault company, seizing more than $86 million in cash, as well as jewelry and gold from 1,400 safe deposit boxes, says the owner's items still have not been returned and that agents misled a judge to get the warrant. Agents raided the Beverly Hills, California branch of the U.S. private vaults in March 2021 and seized assets from boxes held by hundreds of people who were not suspected in any crimes, court papers reported by the LA Times say. That's fascinating. Let's see if we can find what the source of it was. A lawyer from with the Institute for Justice, which filed the lawsuit, said that the government did not know what was in those boxes, who owned them, or what, if anything, those people had done. So what was it? What was the actual reason? They believed the boxes of U.S. private vaults were being used by criminals to store illicit proceeds. Don't you have to have justification for that? Where's the evidence? Is there some proof that that's actually taking place? I mean, it sounds like some work of fiction where somebody is coming up with a story. The FBI got a hold of it and said, well, this isn't a TV script or a movie script. This is real life. Let's go over to U.S. private vaults. I know of a company that does this with wine, by the way, over out in California as well. I wonder if the FBI needs a drink and would raid that too. Fromer said in an Institute for Justice press release last month, the FBI lied about its intentions in claiming to only be interested in the property of the business and not the box holders. Ultimately, the lure of civil forfeiture turned these federal cops into robbers. And that's what I was thinking, that it was civil forfeiture. So where's the justification? I mean, nobody has that authority. It's just, that's wild. Huh. Well, I guess it says it's pleaded guilty to conspiracy to launder drug money, and the investigation is ongoing. But what about all of these people? I mean, was that money in there owned by the actual people and it was stored by the individual people, or was it put there by U.S. private vaults as kind of like a money mule? You know, you can't gain access to it without a warrant. So they never thought that they would get a warrant to open up 1,400 vaults. But hey, U.S. private vaults pled guilty to conspiracy to launder drug money, and everybody that had an account with them at that location just had $86 million seized. So now it's all about them verifying that the money that was in those vaults is really theirs. Good luck with that. And yeah, it'll be a lawsuit for some time. The next article is 5 new Steam games you probably missed. This is as of September 26, 2022. The source is PC Gamer, and the author is Sean Prescott. And I just kind of run through these really quick, but you can go over and read them. If a name or some graphics really catches my attention, then I'll talk about it a little more. But the Outbound Ghost is $16. They have a video over at PC Gamer, and if you follow the link through ohmTown, it takes you right to it. So you can watch and read as you see fit. Spider Heck is the other one. So these are definitely going to be, at least at first blush, October style Halloween games. So Spider Heck. It looks like they have spiders that are armed with swords and they're jumping around on webs and trying to eliminate each other. Let me pause this. It's dangerous to play video on somebody else's site. No Place for Bravery. That also is at Steam. It's $20. The release date was September 22nd. No Place for Bravery. Room 301, number 6. Not quite sure what that is. It says it's a puzzle game that strives to put the player in the role of an Alzheimer's patient. Not sure whether the game has any success in that pursuit, but on its own terms, Room 301, number 6 looks interesting. It caught my attention simply by being not like the normal title. Employee of the Month is the last one, I think. It's $10 and on Steam as well. It says here that the author says that it's at least 3 new PS1 inspired retro horror games on Steam last week. And the subgenre is quickly reaching the point of oversaturation. Well, it's Halloween. Come on. Let's leave it alone. I'll just move on to the next article. The next article is quite intriguing because let me just run through the stats as of today. So as of close of trading, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped another 330 points. I'm going to round up to whole numbers here. The S&P 500 was at 81, and sometimes they'll round down because it went down 31, not 81. It went down 31. NASDAQ dropped 65, and Bitcoin, on the other hand, it's always trading, and it's up 296 from yesterday. But it had dropped yesterday as well. Meanwhile, gas prices in the United States went up another penny, and the day before that, a penny, and the day before that, a penny. And the price of Brent crude has been dropping precipitously. So I find it quite intriguing that the gas prices are still going up, but the cost for them are going down. And if you think, well, maybe it's a lag, well, where is that lag coming from? Because it definitely wasn't an issue with the price being high, the price going through the roof, the price continuing to be high for Brent crude, and the price dropping. And then now we have Brent crude dropping quite a bit. It's now at 83. Between the time that I drew this article out from the aggregator and, well, let's see. I'll verify it right now. It's now at 84, but when I last refreshed my ticker for Brent crude, it was 83. So there's some volatility here, yet gas prices are going up again. That is going to weigh in on the consumer price index. So this next article is over in CNBC by Hannah Ward Glenton, and it's Brent crude slides below $85 a barrel as dollar surges. So we have inflationary rates increasing, but it's going to impact the consumer. These producer price indexes are going to go a little bit higher, but it's going to be driven by oil and gas. The consumer price index is going to increase again. And I'll remind everybody that I said a week ago that they were probably going to do 75 points. I think by November, they're going to do another 25 points. And I think that I think the real inflation rate is closer to 10%. But let's see if there's anything over here. So this is Brent crude over 3 months, according to this publisher. It says on Friday, both Brent and WTI futures fell around 5%. People are saying that it's a fear of a recession. It's fear of the interest rates going up. People are pulling their money out, but there's so much wealth concentrated at the top that everyday people like me and you, we're going to feel it. But not these ultra rich people who are the producers of jobs and the producers of these raw materials. Very few, everyday Joes own companies that draw oil out of the ground. Very few. So let's move on to the next article. It's in the Word in Tech. Widening participation in STEM requires an attitude change, and I agree. Students rule themselves out of or into STEM. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you add art, you end up with STEAM. These STEM disciplines, based on a stereotyped view of what makes a typical student, a new study has found. I agree. This is a phys.org article. University of Reading. I don't think, is it Reading? It might be Reading. Anyway, let me make sure. I think it's Reading. Anyway, new research from the University of Reading has found social hierarchy in STEM, as well as narrow but differing views on the ideal or typical student in each discipline. Those views are held by STEM students and are informed by wider societal opinions. The findings, which are published today in International Studies in Sociology of Education, may explain why women, people of color, and disabled students are underrepresented in some STEM subjects. To change this, attitudes must shift, say researchers. Yeah. And we had a conversation yesterday wherein, no, it wasn't yesterday. It was the day before yesterday. Wherein there was a discussion about how in K through 12, there's a lot of, how do I put it, emotional discussions, like You might call it touchy-feely, you might call it woo-woo, whatever you might want to refer to it as. It is part of an attempt at a societal shift of seeing people for who they are and not their outward appearance. Seeing them as emotional beings that are capable of doing everything that you are, maybe at differing levels, and thus fellow humans, not necessarily nerds, not necessarily jocks. Um, and I grew up in the era where there was, a jock clique, and um, the cheerleaders hung out with that type of person, or whatever you want to say. But as time has gone on, we've become less. Um, uh, let's just say that we've expanded our worldview to accept people more and more. Now there are large elements of society that refuse to buy into this, but as time goes on, maybe we can look past something like glasses qualifying somebody as a nerd. Why? Well, because somebody that has glasses can be a jock. They just have to wear glasses. And it goes on and on like this, particularly in society, but there will always be in groups and out groups. But those in groups and out groups don't necessarily need to be made up by a classification of a gender type or of one thing or another, because I have interacted with what would be called a jock. Yet they were superb at business. They were great at a sport other than football or baseball. In this case, it was chess. Um, in many regards, people are multifaceted, and that's really what the objective is of a new sociological perspective of bringing children up through um, academic circles. Because a lot of this, if you are in school, you are in school for 8 hours out of the day, which means that you're not being led by family. You're not being led by a, a, a silo of people. So there's a plurality, and you have to learn those social skills that allow you to get along with that plurality. Otherwise, you become isolated. And if all you are is seeing, if you act like a hammer and everything is a nail, then all you ever see are nails. And that isn't how the world is. We are, again, a plurality of different people. So we have to change the way that children see other children. And thus, as we grow up, we will change the way that adults see other adults. So it says students think biology is easy and physics are hard. How students speak about STEM subjects themselves and their fellow students reveals the influence of patriarchy, white supremacy, classism, ableism on who can study and excel in biology, engineering, mathematics, physics. This applies to information technology, computer science, computer graphics, basically everything. But STEM is hardest hit because it is seen as an intellectual pursuit. But anybody can take steps to grow and become capable in STEM subjects. And I would urge everybody who thinks that it's really hard to try it. Just try it. Put in that effort, because you can't get time back. You can make more money. You can change to a different topic if you want to in college, but try it out and see if you like it. And even if it's hard, put some effort into it. Give up hanging out with friends for a little bit to such a great degree so that you can actually set yourself up on possibly a better professional and academic footing in the future. And that's coming from somebody who did quite the opposite. I left school early. I started my own business when I was really young. I didn't complete college until I had already gone deep into a career. And let me tell you, it was a whole lot harder to do what I'm doing and what I did now than if I would have gone straight into college and worked as a side gig and It's STEM is actually an amazing domain to fall in. And learn programming, please. Give programming a chance. And that's all part of STEM. It really is a thing, an element of math. But programming falls into biology, engineering, mathematics, physics, everything. So definitely learn programming. Okay, well, it says Dr. Wong and his team interviewed 89 students from 2 research-intensive universities who all study one or more of the 4 subjects: biology, physics, math, mathematics here in the States, maths elsewhere, and engineering. They asked the participants about the ideal student for their subject and the 3 other subjects versus the typical student. And students in engineering, mathematics, and physics were described using masculine-associated language such as analytical, clever, resilient. Biology, on the other hand, was seen as a place for collaboration, work-life balance, and passion. And biology, where women are represented equally with men, is perceived as the easier STEM subject of the 4. I would probably argue that the primary indicator between those 2 subjects is the mathematics. And maybe it'll go into it in greater detail, but I've already spent a considerable amount of time going through this article. I would say follow the link and go check it out. And let me throw that link into the chat so you can do so. And again, it'll be in the show notes. So, whoa, that is the wrong link. Come on, Mayor Watt, do your job. You have one job. One job. Between 6 and 7, you have one job. What is going on here? Okay, let me go over to this next article. The next article is American Airlines passengers report unnerving groans and moaning noises from a PA system that sound somewhere between an orgasm and vomiting. So if there's kids in the room, I'm sorry. Passengers on at least 3 American Airlines flights reported bizarre moaning and groaning noises from in-flight intercom systems. In a viral video, one passenger described the sound as somewhere between an orgasm and vomiting. According to an American Airlines spokesperson, the PA systems are hardwired and there's no external access. Passengers aboard an American Airlines flight from Los Angeles to Dallas earlier this month were thrown into a state of confusion and concern when strange noises began emanating from the phone's public announcement system. Oh, I already opened this. Hold on. Let me just go to that link. There you go. Bethany Byron is the author of this article over at Business Insider. Pardon me while I scratch my nose. Yeah, I probably overshare there. And they have this picture of somebody that says weirdest flight ever. They had no idea where it was coming from. It's a TikTok, of course, and well, you might want to step away from TikTok, apparently. According to the American Airlines spokesperson, the PA systems are hardwired and there's no external access, so where could it have come from? On 3 different flights. As documented by Emerson Collins in a now viral video, a bizarre series of ominous moans and groans suddenly filled the cabin shortly before takeoff. I would have stopped that flight. Okay. We're going to move to a different plane, puzzling passengers and flight attendants, and then continued for the duration of the flight. I don't know what to say about this. They reiterate the description of what the sounds were like. And it says, ladies and gentlemen, we realize there's an extremely irritating sound coming over the public announcements. A flight attendant says in the video, the flight deck is trying to troubleshoot, trying to turn it off, so please be patient with us. We know this is a very odd anomaly and none of us are enjoying it. Well, only the Sith deal in absolutes, which sounds like an absolute if you were a Jedi. Oh, maybe the Jedi are the Sith and the Sith are the Jedi. I know. Your head exploded. I mean, Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be a Sith Lord, right? I don't know. I'm going to end up going down a spiral. You know, the Empire just wanted to get their plans back to the Death Star because the rebel forces stole them, and the Empire just uses clean energy, and the rebel forces just use like natural gas and maybe even diesel and just roll coal all over the place and belch out fumes and all kinds of stuff. I mean, look at their ships when they're flying around. It's horrible. Right? Empire did nothing wrong. I wonder how much hate mail I'm going to get. Anyway, following the initial report, our maintenance team thoroughly inspected the aircraft and the PA system and determined the sounds were caused by a mechanical issue with the PA amplifier, which raises the volume of the PA system when the engines are running. Sure. There was probably a couple of people just sitting there going, okay, so ohmTown Daily News just went ASMR. That's going to be our new focus, and we might be selling bath water later. Next article is not posted into the chat, for crying out loud. I keep bombing every one of these things. What is going on here? Let me do this. I'll get in front of it. Here you go. Boom. So while you're in the air, pilots' key partners may be working from home. 2 airlines now allow dispatchers who share operational authority over flights to do their jobs remotely, and some in the industry take issue with that. I already opened this link. I always do that. I'm starting to do that for everybody now. So this article is over at the New York Times, and it's by Niraj Chokshi. And 2 airlines allow dispatchers who share operational authority over flights to do their jobs remotely, and some in the industry take issue with that. I guess, you just, if everybody's going to be miserable, then it's okay. But if some people are miserable, well, I want to be the one that isn't miserable. And if I am the one that is miserable, then I want everybody to be miserable. That makes sense. Millions of people boarded flights this summer, eager for an escape over 2 years into a stifling pandemic. What many may not have realized is that at least some of the dispatchers who planned and managed those flights, mapping out routes and monitoring weather forecasts and more, were doing the job from home. This dispatch from home concept takes all of the controls away, said Gary Peterson, the Air Division Director of the Transport Workers Union, which represents tens of thousands of airline workers, including dispatchers at Republic. Taking people out of the operation like they're doing, it's insanity. So it says dispatchers typically work from secure facilities known as airline operation centers. There they play a crucial role, sharing operational authority over flights and pilots. Dispatchers put together comprehensive flight plans, charting routes, accounting for weather and turbulence, and ensuring that a given plane is ready to fly. If an emergency arises or weather patterns change, they work with pilots to adjust course or address any problems. Yeah, I think that's what TRACON is all about, right? Maybe maybe I don't know the minutia of this, but yeah, flight controllers. SkyWest allows remote work when local coronavirus cases are high or when the airline deems it necessary. United Airlines also given the option, but hasn't used it. SkyWest did not say how many dispatchers it employed, while Republic said it employs more than 80. The Transport Workers Union, which has fought the FAA on the remote working practice since the beginning, estimated that about 8 Republic dispatchers work from home on a typical day, managing about 150 flights. So what? It takes it away? What takes what away? I'd really like somebody from either this union or in this industry to walk me through the process where just because somebody is in a remote location, suddenly they what? They're the access is taken away. Why would that be? And why would it be any more or less secure if they're using the right technologies? It's just as safe. Maybe if you drag the decimal out a little further. I don't quite understand it. It says such protections are impossible to replicate. Okay, those facilities serve as nerve centers where dispatchers typically work from desks with 3 or 4 monitors or more monitors to track a range of information that could affect air travel, weather, flight status, maps, FAA notices, and even broadcast news. Operations centers have strict measures to protect physical security and cybersecurity and are equipped with high-speed internet access and backup generators that can keep the facilities running for days or weeks. Some are blast resistant and built to withstand extreme weather, such as hurricanes and tornadoes. Okay. Such protections are impossible to replicate remotely. Okay. That's the implication? At home, internet speeds are typically slower and distractions are harder to limit. Not if you're an adult. And hate to break it to you, but right now I have 3 monitors. All of my monitors are 27-inch monitors. I used to have 6 monitors, all of which were 27-inch, and a 65-inch display right there in front of me, up on a wall, so I could see whatever was going on in the news. There is nothing here, and I'm not in a hurricane or tornado zone. The highest weather that has hit my plate, well, I better not say anything, because whenever I say it out loud, it becomes true, apparently. I mean, I actually used to talk about how the best way to disrupt society would be to impugn the integrity of the electoral process. Yeah. I said it out loud, and that, I think, made it come true. At any rate, I think this is a little bit protectionist in nature. Some are blast resistant and built to withstand extreme weather. So I'm safer in my house than I am anywhere else because I don't have a ton of people running around me, um, and getting upset with the workplace or me getting sick. My chances of getting COVID are slim to none. But now that I said it out loud, I might get COVID. At any rate, all of this protect physical security and cybersecurity. It's called a VPN and firewall. It takes 5 minutes to install a software firewall. It takes 15 minutes to deploy a hardware firewall and to tunnel it so that it's going from my point to their point, and that's it. And all of the data could be spread across as many monitors as I want my system to plug into. This is some protectionist garbage. I'd love for this person to come and talk to me about this, Just, we can Zoom, I'll throw you up there. We can have a conversation. Because I'd really like to know more about this. It's FUD. It's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I guarantee you I can protect my system adequately enough to support FAA operations. I mean, for a time, there was a person routing all internet traffic through their apartment. Data isn't necessarily a ton, and numeric data is very little, highly compressible. Somebody doesn't quite, I don't think they understand tech. And I'm happy to talk to them. Come and talk to me about it. I'd love to talk to you about this stuff. Let's move on. The next article is in the Mobile channel, and you'll dig this. If you aren't already aware of it, it's happening right now. Yeah, it's been going on. I'm actually looking at it. They're about 31 minutes out. Instead of my big screen right there, it's now right there to minimize echo. And we get to watch, for the first time ever, an asteroid defense test live. God, I love tech. A spacecraft will deliberately crash into an asteroid at 14,000 miles per hour. I don't know what the I don't know what the kilometers are, so you'll have to do the conversion for me. On Monday, that's right now, East Coast, it's 30 minutes out. I'm on the East Coast. I just looked again. It's exactly 31 minutes, 2 seconds out. And what's going to happen is this DART, which is the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, DART, is going to fly into the Didymus asteroid, and which is orbited by an even smaller asteroid called Dimorphos, or Didymoon. And we are going to, well, NASA is going to measure if it deflects it in any way. Concluding its mission with a kinetic impact maneuver that is expected to slightly shift the path of the moonlet around Didymus. So let's see where this article is aggregated from. It's from Vice.com over at Motherboard Tech by Vice, which I don't know why they categorize that like that. Anyway, Becky Ferreira is the author of this. They have this neat little graphic of the probe about to smash into Didymus, or Didymoon. Launched in 2021, NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, is now closing in on a half-mile wide asteroid called Didymus, which is orbited by an even smaller asteroid called Dimorphos, or Didymoon. And it's over on YouTube, folks. So it's streaming right now. And like I said, it's right there. I think this is a pretty darn cool. Oh, man. To me, I think it's amazing that we're watching near live streams, as live as it can be, from a year-long out orbit or launch. So this vehicle has been on its way for a year, and it's finally about to reach its objective, and we get to watch it in what amounts to, if you weren't told that it was delayed by a certain amount of time, you would never know, and you'd think, oh, well, it's just sending signals, right? And it takes a little bit of time to reach out to a probe a year away. The space probe is expected to shorten Dimorphos's orbit by about 1%, causing it to lose about 4 minutes from its current period of 11.9 hours, but it will leave the rock intact and snugly in orbit around Didymus. Though the shift may seem small, it would be enough to divert an asteroid that was headed for Earth, if you get enough notice and can deflect it off so it changes its orbit enough. If a similar mission were ever launched far enough in advance, that's exactly what I just said. So I don't read the entire article before I do my show. So I read it when you read it right here live, and talk about it from my particular perspective and my, sphere of knowledge, I guess you could say. Let's see here. Let's go down a little bit more. And there's a little bit more. It says, regardless of the odds, it never hurts to have a plan for such a apocalyptic possibility. The fact that it involves punching an asteroid with a space probe is just a bonus. Yeah, I think this is spectacular. I love the idea of it. I fear for the implications that this thing, although it's supposed to, pop it in a certain way, if it becomes an oblong orbit and it no longer stays as an object in orbit around whatever it's currently in orbit of, not just the big asteroid that's orbiting another asteroid. I'm talking about both of them are orbiting something. And if they come back in some different angle and now they come for us, I'm sure it's not a sentient entity, but we're hitting something, and we don't necessarily know what the full long-term ramifications are. We've calculated things, but man, I think it's amazing what humankind can do when we all work together. But this is still one of those things, the unknown, as Rumsfeld would put it, could be miles wide and land in our own backyard. So now I'm really curious, and I'm going to end up going down the rabbit hole of the dart and looking what the orbit is of Didymus and Dimorphos, and see where exactly they are in relation to Earth's orbit, just so I can see what we're actually talking about in space and time. Pretty neat, folks. And that's it for today's show. Again, I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com. And this is the ohmTown Daily News Show for September 26, 2022. If you are in my chat and lurking, thank you very much for hanging out. Be sure to follow. I've got a new follower goal. I know things changed. I don't really hype it up. I kind of mention it every once in a while in my stream. For a while, I even forgot that it was up there. And I'm really here just to talk about, the last 24 hours of news and what amounts to a small amount. There were about 55 pages worth of news aggregated into the news aggregator in the last 24 hours. Sometimes it's duplicates because somebody has edited their article, and my aggregator gets notified that there's a new version of it. But for the most part, Mondays are playing catch up, and then Tuesday slows down a little bit in terms of news. And then Wednesday and Thursday is a big push again, where there's 55, 60, 70 pages worth of news. And this is just from the sources that I currently have activated in my aggregator. And I filter through it periodically to see if anything is kind of fallen off the rails. It's just not a good match anymore because of the tone or texture of their news. And I use it day in, day out. I use it so that I am cognizant of the events that are going on in the world around me. And I may miss stuff, but it is there for us to consume. So come on by tomorrow. Same time, 6 p.m. I may be a little bit more tired tomorrow, but I'm here for you, and we can talk about the last 24 hours of news. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.